The time has finally come. It's been over a year since I tried to complete Persona 5 Royal with only Joker and Arsene, and now we're gonna continue that challenge with Persona 4. Narukami may be strong, but his friends are what gave him the resolve to overcome the odds. Today, we're gonna find out what he can accomplish himself with his flagship persona, Izanagi. In a playthrough filled with strategy, patience, and comedy, mostly at my expense, we answer the question, can you beat Persona 4 Golden with only Narukami and Izanagi? Here are the rules. Narukami is the only character that can fight in battle. You know, attacks, persona skills, items, etc. Until I can kick them off, party members can only guard during battle. I cannot use them to heal outside of battle either. Izanagi is the only persona allowed to be used in battle. This allows skill cards and the Chagall Cafe to be fair game. The run must be done on new game and on hard difficulty. I made a poll earlier, way back when I first did this, about whether I should do hard or very hard, but thankfully, my subscribers know that very hard is a fake difficulty setting. The run is complete once the credits roll on the true golden ending. With that out of the way, let's start the show. The game begins with our protagonist, Solo Seta, arriving at the town of Inaba to stay with our uncle Dojima and cousin Nanako. After shaking hands with a gas station attendant and immediately regretting it, we head home and have a strange dream where I'm swinging a sword at a whole lot of nothing. But I wake up to a new day, a new school, and new friends, Chie, Yukiko, and Biking Student, also known as Pain Student, aka Bleak Looking Student. On our way home, we hear about an announcer who mysteriously died, with her body hung up on a telephone pole. But moving on to the next day, Chie brings up a strange rumor called the Midnight Channel. Supposedly, if you look into your TV at midnight, you'll see your soulmate. Now, come on, rumors coming true? That's gotta be the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Oh, I see what they did there. Later on, Narukami gives the rumor a try. As he reaches out to the TV, he nearly ends up inside of it. Yosuke and Chie don't believe it though, and while showing them that we actually did go inside the TV, we all end up falling in together. Inside the mysterious TV world, we wander around and find. Well, that's enough exploring for one day. I think I'm ready to go. Yeah, we're leaving. Our nightmares only continue though, as now another body was found on the telephone pole, Sakiko Nishi, Yosuke's co-worker and crush. Yosuke begins to suspect that the Midnight Channel and TV world are responsible for the bodies, so we investigate further along with the bear, Teddy, to discover the truth. But while exploring the shopping district, we get ambushed by a couple of shadows. But just in the nick of time, Narukami awakens to the coolest protagonist persona, Izanagi. Is there anything to talk about really here? It's the tutorial battle. I don't even think it's possible to lose this! Afterwards, while hearing Saki's inner feelings about Yosuke, a shadowy version of the young boy appears. The shadow claims Yosuke entered the TV world just to become a hero, and not to find out why Saki died. Yosuke denies the truth, and the shadow attacks us. Alright, finally a fight to actually talk about. It is what I would say if there was something to talk about here. Again, I don't know how you can lose this. But just use Zio when you can, follow up with Cleave, guard when he guards, and heal if things get dicey. It'll be over before you know it. With the support of Narukami and Teddy, Yosuke is able to accept his shadow and awaken to his own persona, Jiraiya. After successfully saving our friend, we vow to catch the killer throwing people into the TV and protect the town of Inaba. You know, we say this and then like literally the next day our friend gets kidnapped, so we're off to a bad start, but we can fix this. This time, things will be different. We're ready to save the next victim before it's too late. Despite not having a persona, Chie joins us to save her friend, but quickly rushes on ahead, leaving it up to us to make sure both her and Yukiko are returned safe and sound. But before we head after Chie, I'm going to make some preparations. Once we reach her, I'll have to fight a mini-boss, and I would not stand a chance right now. In order to beat it, I'll either need a high enough endurance stat to tank its attacks, or to find the Garu skill card since the boss is weak to wind. In order to get either, I'll need to win some fights and get shuffle times. Shuffle time is an event that occurs sometimes after you win a battle, in which you'll be greeted by a number of cards that can provide bonuses or penalties in exchange for allowing you to pick up more cards. With good luck, I can find both stat increases and skill cards during shuffle time, and they're both quintessential for the entire run. But I can't leave the TV world until I rescue Chie. So what happens if I run out of SP or I'm low on HP? Well, on the first floor of Yukiko's castle, there are 4 chests that spawn each time you enter the floor. They can give you items ranging from a peach seed to a very helpful snuffle. By bouncing back between floors 1 and 2, the chests will keep respawning, so I can effectively farm for items to keep myself alive while I grind for stats. And boy will I need those items. Without Yosuke, it is such a hassle to grind in this section of the game. The tongue enemies I can take down with Zio skills, but that'll drain my SP sooner than later. And the fish enemies can basically one-shot me with cleave, so it's better to just run away from them. It doesn't help either that Yosuke is taking half of the experience in battle despite doing nothing to contribute, but I can only keep going forward. And with enough time, I'm confident enough in my endurance stat to take on the boss. We rush to save Chie after abandoning her for like 2 full hours as Yukiko's inner thoughts echo throughout the room. As Chie hears about how much Yukiko relies on her, this begins to send her ego on a trip as her shadow appears. Before we can calm Chie down, she denies her shadow, leaving it up to us to save the day. And when I say us, I really mean just me. For some reason though, Shadow Chie likes to target Yosuke more, and since he's just guarding, he can tank more and more hits for me. It's not like Shadow Chie can do much damage to me either. With my endurance this high, this fight is just, well, a test of endurance. I don't do much damage to her since I can't target her weakness right now, so I try to debuff her defense with Rakunda and attack with Zio. I also make sure to heal up both myself and Yosuke whenever things get a little dicey. Yosuke is still only just guarding, so I'm not breaking any rules of the run, and considering he's taking a huge cut of the experience at the end of the fight anyways, being a damage sponge is just his way of earning his keep. With enough Zios, Shadow Chie is defeated. Chie faces herself and awakens to another persona you won't be seeing ever again, and the group prepares to come back the next day, better equipped for the challenges ahead. So now I have a bit of freedom to decide what I want to do. So I can go buy some elemental items at the Shiroku store. For now, I'll be buying some firecrackers and a few ice cubes since, unless my RNG gets really good, I probably won't find any Agi or Bufu skill card for a while. Until then, this is the next best thing. Now that Chie has joined, we have another party member leeching away at my hard-earned experience points, so I'm effectively getting 1/3 of the experience I should gain. Because of this, grinding is gonna be even slower at this point. You know, a lot of people complained in Persona 1 about how experience was based on party member contribution, but honestly, this section has me thinking they were onto something with that. Thankfully, I can still farm the first floor for healing items. The only enemies I can still safely take out are the ones weak to Zio. Otherwise, I'll risk getting a game over. Although the shovel time bonuses I'm getting are helpful, I'm not getting any good cards yet. I do equip Sharp Student though, since it'll decrease the likelihood of me getting crit, which at this point in the game is an instant death sentence. After enough grinding, I decided to go to the higher floors and challenge the mini-boss. Now this was the reason I bought all of those firecrackers. The Adventure Knight uses Power Charge followed by Skewer that will deal massive damage. By exploiting its weakness to fire, I can keep it dizzied and lower the amount of turns it can retaliate while I keep dealing more damage. Firecrackers will always do a set 50 damage, so even though it isn't much, the damage adds up, especially in the early game. Chie does eventually get taken out during the battle, but that just means more experience for me, and at the end of the day, that's all that matters. All that's left to do now is to reach the top of the castle, but I'm going to need to grind a little bit more. The boss is weak to ice, but I don't think all the ice cubes in the world can save me here. If I want a good shot, I'll need to get lucky and get the Bufu skill card. After enough time, I finally do get it, along with the Dia skill card. And by this time, my endurance and level are pretty solid too, so I think it's time to show the boss what's up. We burst into the room to find both Yukiko and her shadow. Before we can stop her, Yukiko rejects her shadow, and now it's showtime. This is the first real boss fight of the game, and she's pretty capable of doing big damage, even with my high endurance stat. Compared to the original Persona 4, they more than doubled Shadow Yukiko's health, and she pretty much sticks to the same strategy until the halfway point. The only moves of note are Burn to Ashes and White Wall. The former does a sizable amount of damage to the whole party, even when guarding, and the latter protects her from her weakness to ice for 3 turns. My strategy to make this fight go by faster is to debuff her defense first and then use Bufu to knock her down, followed up by Cleave since my strength stat is way higher than my magic stat right now. This allows for about 160 damage per turn when she's debuffed, which is about the best I could ask for. And since I'm not using Bufu twice, it allows me to save my SP for debuffing, because one buff or debuff takes as much SP as using Bufu 3 times in a row. Once we're halfway through the fight, Shadow Yukiko summons her Prince Charming to join in. This minion will occasionally heal her or inflict status ailments to the group. It'd be a real pain if he kept healing her, so I started to focus my attacks on him. He's weak to Zio, so I'm able to keep knocking him down, but the prince can take a lot of hits, and when he inflicts me with silence, I can't use skills, effectively locking me out of my main strategy. Against such overwhelming odds, what is there for our hero to do to defeat the dastardly avian foe? Well, Yukiko, I may be out of SP, but I ain't out of options. For the times where my SP gets low or I'm not able to use skills, I make sure to keep the damage up by using ice cubes or lightning balls on the appropriate enemy to get a 1 more and then heal myself as needed. Eventually the minion takes enough hits and runs away, leaving Shadow Yukiko abandoned, so it's just the boss left. For this part, I only try to keep Yosuke alive to avoid one thing. The boss has the skill Terror Voice, which has a chance to inflict fear, which it will then follow up with Shivering Rondo, a skill that will effectively nuke me. For some reason, the boss prefers to attack Yosuke over Narukami, not just with regular attacks, but with status moves too. Since Yosuke is guarding, he's protected from status ailments, so he's just sitting there wasting the boss's turns. After about 60 minutes, the fight is over. Yukiko wakes up and accepts her shadow and gains her persona. With that, the investigation team has now stopped the killer's plans, and now we have a little bit of free time to do some things. Thing is though, I don't have all that much to do. Since I have no party members in this run, I don't have any reason to do their social links for the bonuses they get. However, there are some things I can do that'll help out. First thing is raising my knowledge stat. By doing so, I'll be able to do well on exams and get a special item from Nanako down the line. Second thing is starting the Fox social link. By going to the shrine, you meet a mysterious fox who wants you to complete people's wishes so they donate to the shrine. This fox is the only reliable way to restore SP in the TV world, so the faster I rank up the link, the longer I can grind. Lastly, I could also do Marie's social link for the golden content locked behind it, but I have the whole game to do that. After enough time has passed, a local thug appears on the TV, Kanji Tatsumi. A few days later, and he's on the Midnight Channel too. Try as we might, we weren't able to save him from getting thrown in, so it's up to us to get him out of the Steamy Bathhouse. At this point, I can now get rid of my party members and make it so that it's a true solo challenge run. Since I'm only one person now, all attacks will go towards me and I'll quickly get stomped. Hell, some enemies can just take me out in one attack too, so it's either kill or be killed. Because of this, I actually go back to Yukiko's castle to farm Shovel Time for more endurance stat increases as well as skill cards. Shovel Times can also provide you with some healing too, so with the right plays, I can stay and grind for longer. This is something I'm going to be doing quite often throughout the entire run. With enough luck, I'm able to get the Agi skill card, which I replace Tarukaja with. Not too much later, and I also get the Garu skill card, which I replace Rakunda with. I was torn over whether it'd be best to have a skill to debuff defense or raise my own, but I'd rather take no chances in case I need my defense to be up. Now that I have all 4 elemental skills, I can now safely fight a decent amount of enemies in the Steamy Bathhouse most of the time. While grinding Shovel Time, I also managed to get a Magician card. Magician cards will randomly rank up one of Izanagi's skills as long as they can go up. I roll the dice, and my Rakukaja gets upgraded to a Marakukaja. That's pretty much the worst thing that could have happened off of this, but that's just my luck. Things are going much better outside of the TV world though. During this time, I managed to max out my knowledge, so when exam time comes around, I'll be able to get the highest score in the class and receive a reward from Nanako. The Daring Gigas is the first force encounter that doesn't have a weakness, and they hit pretty damn hard. They have a set pattern of using Power Charge, Rebellion, and Tarukaja before attacking with Single Shot. It isn't a strong attack, but when they buff their damage dealing capabilities in every possible way, it can get a little scary. At least that would be the case, but by using all of those skills repeatedly, this boss will run out of SP after 3 single shots. Not only that, but they'll keep sticking to their pattern even though they can't perform any of the skills except Single Shot. As long as I keep my HP up and guard the single shot, there's literally nothing this boss can do to hurt me. The fight was a joke in every sense of the word. Honestly, I don't think I need to grind for the end boss anymore. With all the time spent grinding earlier, I think I'm honestly set. I equipped the Volt Suppressor since that's pretty much the only real helpful thing I can have despite electric attacks being a non-issue anyways, and head into the room. We find Kanji safe, but his shadow is quick to expose Kanji's insecurities. Kanji denies his shadow, and you won't believe what happens next. So on one hand, this is a 1-on-3 fight. The nice guy will use support skills on his teammates, and the tough guy will attack me with physical skills. Meanwhile, Shadow Kanji will try to poison me with Forbidden Murmur, or attack me with physical or Zeo-type skills. The saving grace for this first part of the fight is that the nice guy is weak to ice, and the tough guy is weak to fire. This is another change made in Golden, and it definitely makes taking them out a lot easier. The tough guy has a lot of HP though, so although the nice guy is defeated relatively quickly, the tough guy sticks around for quite a while. I can at least dizzy it to keep it down for a turn, but it's not like the damage it can do to me is anything but laughable. It's a better use of my time to just hit the tough guy once with its weakness, and to then focus on Shadow Kanji. Shadow Kanji is the bigger threat here by a long shot. His physical attacks do a sizable amount of damage to me, and when I'm poisoned, things can get a little dicey since I'm losing a good chunk of health, while the boss can still attack me. However, the boss still uses Roar of Wrath, which would normally enrage any of the female party members in battle, even though I'm the only party member here, so I guess I can just get free turns off of it, so that's cool. Since my strength stat is still much higher than my magic stat, the best way I can deal damage is through cleave, so it's doubly important that I can keep my HP up. With how many hits Shadow Kanji can take, this fight can start to drag, but thankfully, I'm able to beat it on the first try. With his shadow weakened, Kanji faces himself and we safely get him out of the TV world. With another victim saved, things have been looking pretty up so far in this run. The fights may take long, but at least for the early game, I have a pretty solid game plan for each of the bosses. I make some more headway into the Fox social link and get started on Marie's social link too. You know, I think I've been a little bit hard on Marie here, you know. Let's take a second to enjoy a classy Marie poem. Silent snow, fleeting like my love once lost. Does anyone ever read these? No? Neither do I. You know what you should check out though? The subscribe button. Smiley face. Just when things start to get a bit boring, Yosuke gets the idea for us to get our biking licenses. By biking around enough, I can gain access to Okina City, which is home to the Chagall Cafe. Over here, I can get skill cards that the personas I have carry. This does mean that I have to equip a persona that isn't Izanagi, but since I'm only still going to be using Izanagi in battle, I don't think it's a big deal. It mainly makes it so I don't have to slave away in shovel time, praying I get the skills I want for hours on end. Now I can fuse personas, and if their level is high enough, I can grab their skill cards from the Chagall Cafe. I fused Nikimitama for the Diorama skill card, Lamia for Agilao, and Principality for Hama. Diorama replaces Dia, Agilao replaces Agi, and Hama replaces Sharp Student. Shoutouts to this post by Hayate Butler on Steam going over which personas give which skill cards, as well as the Arantius Fusion Calculator. Both are very helpful when making this run, and just in general when I play Persona 4. Links are in the description. Before I can do anything else, an idol appears on the news, Rise Kujikawa. Fearing that she'd be another victim, Narukami, Yosuke, and Kanji visit her to warn her that she's in danger. But once again, despite our best efforts to keep her safe, she ends up getting kidnapped too. The group follows the trail and arrives at the Marukyu Striptease, eager to save the idol. At this point, I can target any weakness besides Curse, which makes grinding a hell of a lot easier. I'm quite a bit underleveled though, and my stats are beginning to fall behind. There's a property of Shovel Time that I didn't specifically mention earlier. If you pick up every card during Shovel Time, you'll get a sweep bonus. This guarantees that you'll get a Shovel Time at the end of the next battle, and you get to pick up more cards than usual. I usually head back to Yukiko's castle whenever I get a sweep bonus going, because since it's the first dungeon, less cards appear there during Shovel Time than in later dungeons, which gives me a higher chance of keeping the sweep bonus alive. By doing this, I can get helpful stat bonuses much faster. Once I feel confident enough in my stats, I decide to face off against the mini-boss. Okay, the difficulty spike here is insane. I'm trying my hardest out here, and this guy just drops me with how much damage? This is bullshit. This fight is another pretty trivial one. Its gimmick is to inflict status ailments on you through attacks like Virus Wave for poison or Mind Slice for panic. Its attacks aren't all too strong, but the thing that really made the fight so lopsided in my favor was that, for some reason, its attacks just didn't hit me all too often. My agility wasn't exceptionally high either, and I didn't buff or debuff hit rate or evasion, so this was a bit confusing. All I had to do was just keep using Agilao and healing when I needed to. Kind of shocking, honestly. While now I can grind in the later half of the dungeon, these enemies are really making me earn my wins. There's a lot of close calls as I'm basically threading the needle to win all of these fights when I can. It does help though that I found the patient collar in one of the locked chests here though. This accessory provides me with Endure, which will allow me to survive a hit that will kill me. This allows me to essentially cheat my way to victory in some fights, like against the dice who self-destruct near the end of the fight, but only prolongs the inevitable in others. Before I fight the dungeon boss though, I make sure to fuse Hanuman for the Mighty Swing skill card to replace Cleave. Not only is it a solidly strong physical skill for this point in the game, but it also has a pretty high crit rate. Combined with my high strength stat, I think it's gonna do wonders for the boss fight. I also pick up Zionga from Unicorn to replace Zio, and give Izanagi Rakunda again to replace Muraku Kaja. Now it's time for the boss. We enter the room to find Rise being talked down to by her shadow, and the fight begins. Shadow Rise follows a set pattern. She'll use every light and medium damage fire skill, then do the same with ice, then electric, and then finally wind. Once she's through, she'll repeat the process over and over again, with the occasional physical attack thrown in here and there. The light damage skills like Agi and Bufu do single digit damage to me, and the Zio skills are a non-issue. This allows me to safely attack with Mighty Swing while she's debuffed for some good damage, getting a fair amount of crits as well. However, when we get to the Garu set of skills, that's when I have to be worried since I'm still weak to wind skills. I could just guard the 4 wind attacks, but I thought of a better idea. I guard the weak wind attacks and use magic mirrors I picked up to reflect the medium wind attacks back. That deals over 400 damage and quickly makes progress through the fight. Enough Mighty Swings later, and she uses Supreme Insight, which is fancy talk for, "Congratulations, you've won the fight, just guard for 3 turns and we can move on to the main event." Shadow Rise is about to blast us into next speak, but before she can, Teddy takes her out in the nick of time. Rise takes this opportunity now to accept her shadow. The celebrations are cut short though, as now Teddy's shadow appears. Now if we want to make it out of here in one piece, we're gonna have to fight this ungodly abomination. Like Shadow Rise, the fight with Shadow Teddy is pretty formulaic. The boss has a tendency to follow up a Mind Charge with Mabufula, and will follow up a Marakunda with a Heat Wave. There are also some regular attacks sprinkled in to add an illusion of unpredictability, but things are pretty straightforward. To deal any meaningful damage, I'm practically forced to debuff Shadow Teddy's defense before attacking with Mighty Swing. Since my SP is pretty limited and my strength stat is still much higher than my magic, physical skills are the primary way to get anywhere in this fight. Shadow Teddy also has his unique skills Nullity Guidance, which will automatically dizzy a party member, followed up by an Ultra Charge. This skill wastes 2 turns as Teddy prepares to use Nihil Hand. However, with those 2 turns of charge time, that means we can get up, defend, and Nihil Hand does no damage to us. With a whole 5000 HP to attack away at, the only fear I have is getting unlucky and hit by a critical hit. This is realistically the only way I could lose since I primarily attack with physical skills which will always keep me at not full HP. And the longer this fight goes on, the more chances Shadow Teddy has to get a lucky crit on me and just wipe me out. And if he does wipe me out, I'll have to fight Shadow Rise again just to get back to this point. Which is what happens. I got crit and dizzied by a regular attack, which Shadow Teddy then followed up with a Marakunda into Heat Wave for the kill. I wasn't actually recording this part of the fight, so please accept this accurate recreation of what just happened, provided by my good buddy Sensei.
I like your cut, G.
The rematch with Shadow Rise is second verse, same as the first. Nothing really changed in terms of my strategy or how the fight went out. It was another win, let's move on to Teddy. On the next attempt, it was pretty much the same strategy. Debuff defense, Mighty Swing, keep my health up, and don't get crit. This was a test of endurance, and I don't want to say too much right now, but trust me, this was only just the beginning. Teddy faces himself and awakens to that thing, and it's back to spending time with the fox and Marie. Rise joins the team as well. Now, unlike Futaba in Persona 5, Rise's rank 1 social link doesn't automatically give me any benefits whatsoever in battle, so I won't have to worry about Rise popping in every now and then to give me some assistance in battle. Unfortunately, the killings continue though, as now our very own teacher King Moron is found dead the next morning. And yet he gets replaced by a somehow even worse teacher. What the heck is wrong with this place? But the important thing is, we've got a town to protect. Afterwards, we got the grades back from our finals and we got the highest score. And a reward for doing so is the paper armband which we get from Nanako. This item gives +5 to all stats and will be my go-to accessory for a while. Another rainy night, however, and another person shows up on the Midnight Channel without any warning. Furthermore, they seem to be the one responsible for the murders lately, hence them asking us to go and chase them. After digging around, we find out that it was Mitsuo Kubo. We make our way to the Void Quest to apprehend him. This is the dungeon I've been dreading the most. The enemies are tough, it has some pretty gimmicky floors, and the most ear-grating music in the entire game. No, seriously, I seriously had to turn off my game volume because I was in here for so long. Just looking at this place gives me war flashbacks. Most encounters in here are very capable of wiping the floor with me, even though I'm the one with the mop. So I started thinking, maybe the regular enemies were just harder than the mini-boss. So I went to go try my hand at fighting the Killing Hand. I was wrong. I was horribly wrong. I did not expect that I need to grind all too much for this boss. I was not prepared at all. The Killing Hand isn't too strong. I mean, its Deathbound is strong, but it's not that bad. The real problem is that the boss keeps summoning a henchman, the Almighty Hand, whenever it can, and the minion will continuously heal the boss. I need to do enough damage to outdo the minion's healing, as well as keep myself alive and at a healthy HP threshold. Needless to say, I'm going to need to grind for better stats and skills. On floor 7 of Void Quest, you're greeted with 6 total branching pathways, and at the end of the road going forward, you'll reach a treasure chest. That chest can contain a lot of helpful items and will always respawn in the same spot every time you reset the floor. Like in Yukiko's castle, I can essentially farm this chest for strong items such as lifestones and magatamas free of charge. If I'm really lucky, I can even farm physical and magic mirrors. I may run into a shadow when opening the chest every now and then, but the cost is so worth it when the rewards are that amazing. Furthermore, the 6 branching paths have a pretty high chance of at least one of them having a gold hand in view. I'm not strong enough to take out more than one with the skills I have now, but who said I had to be the one to take them out? Sometimes, a platinum dice will be summoned into battle, and by getting it to low enough HP, it'll self-destruct, defeating the gold hands for me, giving me a ton of experience points and money. This will be a very common grinding location for me to visit for the rest of the run, similar to how I still go to Yukiko's castle whenever I get a sweep bonus. Once I'm done grinding, I purchase the edge sword to further increase my strength stat, and fuse Shiki Oiji for the Growth 2 skill card. Growth is an ability that allows personas to gain experience after battle, even if they're not in my party. It'll take some time though because they'll only gain 50% of the total experience, but it's gonna be a lifesaver when it comes to getting skill cards from higher level personas. I give Growth 2 to Okuni Nushi so I can get Apt Pupil later, a skill that will raise my critical hit rate, and it doesn't just stop there. Thanks to a lot of Magician cards, all of my magic skills ranked up, which left it so that Magician cards could only now rank up my Mighty Swing. With that, Mighty Swing became Gigantic Fist, which then became Brave Blade. Brave Blade is the 3rd strongest physical skill in the game, so I went back to the mini-boss with a vengeance. I was dealing over 3 times the damage that Mighty Swing would deal, and was comfortably outpacing the healing that the minion would provide. The minion being weak to ice also helped me add some extra chip damage as well. In just a few turns, the mini-boss gets crushed. But I still need to take out the minion, which shouldn't be so bad. It has God's hand?! No! That's it? You nearly kill me? Then just walk out of my life forever? I hate this dungeon. Alright, now there's only one obstacle left in my path, Shadow Mitsuo. To even have a comfortable chance to win, I upgraded Brave Blade into God's Hand, found an Agidine skill card for my first heavy magic skill, and grinded my endurance to the max. Yup, 99 endurance at the 4th dungeon in the game. Trust me, I'm going to need all the endurance I can get. I can also choose between equipping the Patient Collar for Endure or the Book of Serenity, which will make any status ailments I have last only one turn. I think the Book of Serenity is the better option, since the boss will keep trying to inflict me with exhaustion and I'll need as much SP as I can get. Also, Okuni Nushia is now leveled up enough so that I can get the Apt Pupil skill card, which I replaced Magaru with. I'm now level 64 with the level 66 Izanagi. If you think this is overkill and that this will trivialize the rest of the run, you'd be very, very surprised. Regardless, the time has come. We open the gates, stare into Mitsuo's cold, lifeless eyes, and ready for battle as his shadow manifests. The gimmick of this boss is that it will hide in an 8-bit armor called Mitsuo the Hero. In this form, Mitsuo can choose between two attacks, a regular sword strike, and a bomb that causes exhaustion. Exhaustion is a status ailment that repeatedly drains my SP each turn and causes me to take even more damage than I already am. The Book of Serenity was supposed to help me out against this ailment, but it turns out that I forgot to equip it and I still have the Patient Collar. So I'm kind of forced to lose SP and take more damage while I chip away at the boss's health. Need I mention that the boss has 2 turns? I have max endurance and pretty good armor and I'm still taking this much damage. I think the grinding was well warranted. As for my strategy, the best damage I can do comes from debuffing Mitsuo's defense and using God's Hand. With a crit, I can deal over 400 damage, but God's Hand also takes a huge portion of my HP, so I brought in a lot of healing items for this fight. With enough damage, the shell will be broken, leaving the boss exposed. However, even in this form, the boss still has 2 turns with some very annoying skills. The boss will begin by putting up an elemental wall, and depending on that element, they'll start using those skills repeatedly. I got unlucky and they put up a green wall, and exploited my weakness to wind. I ended up tanking 5 attacks without being able to do anything, and honestly, I felt more defeated than I felt relieved that I survived. It's pretty challenging to get hits on the baby form too because it can deal a scary amount of damage with magic. Or I can use Evil Smile to inflict me with fear, then use Ghastly Wail, which will insta-kill anyone afflicted with fear. Thankfully, the homunculi I've gathered throughout the dungeon grinding are keeping me alive through the insta-kill tactics. Being paralyzed by fear and losing a turn is still pretty detrimental for me, because the boss will begin to rebuild its shell, and once that's complete, I'll have to take down the 8-bit armor again. He also levels up and gains access to Gigadyne, a very strong almighty skill. This boss just goes on forever. The armor has 1400 HP and the boss has 4000 HP. It's more than a game of time, more than a game of endurance. This is a full hour of me praying I don't get too unlucky and just lose. I came into this fight with nearly the max number of healing items I can have too, and I'm still barely just scraping by because it's so difficult to find a safe opening on this boss between its high damage output, 2 turns to attack, and massive HP pool. This boss is easily the most tense fight I've experienced in the challenge run so far. Key phrase, so far. But despite all the pressure, I started to get a few more ideas. When I was about to destroy the shell, I used the physical and magic mirrors I had. This is so that when I get to the baby form, I can immediately start dealing damage without worrying about his beginning attacks. I also started using some Magatamas to deal a safe amount of damage to the boss, and started to take some gambles with my attacks. And they were gambles. I barely, just barely, managed to prevent the boss from rebuilding its shell again and clutched the win. All of the anger, disappointment, and fear was worth it to win this fight on my first attempt. With Mitsuo apprehended, it seems as though we've captured the killer and that peace will return to the town of Inaba. But my work still isn't done. Outside of hanging out with Marie, I started to notice that all of the skill cards infusing was starting to burn a hole through my wallet. So I started working as a caretaker so I can earn some money during the daytime. On days where I can't work as a caretaker, I'm usually going back into the TV world to farm the gold hands again for money. While doing so, I've used Kikuri Hime for the Dirahan skill card and oh, I got my first fusion accident too, so that's cool. As for story progression, all that's left is for summer to wrap up. The detective Naoto Shirogane joins us at Yasogami High and is adamant that Mitsuo was just a copycat killer, and the real culprit is still loose. After some more shenanigans, Naoto appears on the TV. It seems as though Naoto purposely made themselves a target to prove their theory correct, as they become the next target for the culprit. Now the group journeys into the secret laboratory, as we're Naoto's only hope. After all the grinding I had to do for Mitsuo, no enemy here could honestly touch me. I was no longer just a one-man army, I was a machine hardened by the brutality of war. I'm pretty much able to clear through most enemy encounters with ease and make it to the mini-boss in no time at all. The boss knows two things, Power Charge and Herculean Strike. Unfortunately for them, that means that unless they land a critical hit, I'm not gonna have to break a sweat. The numbers may look intimidating, but compared to Mitsuo, this was just another pebble on the road. With some physical mirrors too, the boss would just do massive damage to itself. When the boss is on its last leg of health, it'll begin to stand by. You can either defeat the boss in 3 turns or just guard the incoming last resort. But I'm tired of working harder, so let's just work smarter. Before I fight the main boss, I need to tune up my Izanagi just a little bit more. At this point, every major boss in the game will have heavy magic skills, so I need to tie up some loose ends. I get the Dia Rahan skill card from Korihime, and Chernobog gives me the Resist Wind skill. Thanks to this, my Izanagi is now weakness free. I also keep the Book of Serenity on me since the boss likes to inflict ailments often, namely silence, which would keep me from using persona skills. Let's not keep the boss waiting any longer. The investigation team runs in to find Naoto oddly calm about everything. This doesn't last too long as the shadow reveals that Naoto was actually a girl all along. Naoto continues to lash out at her shadow and the fight is on. If I can make a difficulty chart for bosses in this game, the jump from Shadow Teddy to Mitsuo is like climbing a brick wall with your bare hands. Meanwhile, going from Shadow Mitsuo to Shadow Naoto is like tumbling down the same cliff you just climbed. It's like a game of chutes and ladders, and well, what I'm trying to say is that this boss is a complete joke. I don't know what's with the boss, but I swear the AI is just incompetent at times. I mean, just look at it. They're using Takaja when I'm not even buffed. This is supposed to be hard mode. I don't understand why the boss is just being so dumb. I can see why the developers gave this boss some pretty crazy skills like Galglim Eyes and Mute Ray. The former will tank my HP down to 1 and inflict me with Enervation, whereas the latter will deal some damage, lower my SP, and inflict me with Mute. But even so, this boss is no sweat at all. An absolutely easy win. Wow. Full HP, max endurance, pretty good armor, all mean nothing. Unlucky critical hit. A flawed AI winning off of pure luck. Now, I could honestly just try the fight over again and win, but I'm just mildly upset with how that ended, so I'm just gonna make a few changes before I give the fight another go. I did some fusing so I could grab new skill cards. Zeodyne from Tamlin, Power Charge from Yoshitsune, and Mind Charge from Alice. What you may call overkill, I call revenge. The plan is pretty simple. I'm gonna Power Charge, then Mind Charge, before I debuff Shadow Naoto's defense and deal some major damage. She actually takes a little extra damage to Zeo skills, so despite my lackluster magic stat, I'm still doing a considerable amount of damage. I also brought in some physical mirrors to reflect her attacks. I'm not risking anything now, and I'm starting to shred through the boss. Even if she uses Element 0, which nullifies any elemental resistances I have some magic mirrors to keep myself safe through it all, and plenty of healing items for when she uses Galglim Eyes. I'm just thankful she doesn't have 2 turns. In just about 6 minutes, Shadow Naoto gets canned. Well, that fight was just about as overall easy as I expected, but that really put my endurance stat into perspective. I mean, yeah, I got unlucky, but the fact that I died from practically full health in 3 hits is kind of shocking. The bosses will only get tougher from here on out, so I'll need to figure something out. If there's anything I learned from this run, it's that power isn't everything. And that's not the last time I'm going to be saying that. The killer is still out there, but until we get some more clues, we've got to spend some time on other things. I finally maxed out Marie's social link at this point, so I'll have access to the golden content down the line. I still have some Fox quests to complete before that social link is maxed out too, so that's where the bulk of my time goes whenever I'm not making money. And we've got a lot of time to kill. October is a month that's filled with a handful of filler events, but not so much in the way of main story progression. But it appears I've got mail. Let's see here. Do you know Shadow World sucks, by the way. Smash! Okay, apparently there's this Joker guy in Smash, so I'm stuck on Inaba for now. Anyways, the killer knows we're the ones getting in the way of their plans, but the team decides to keep it a secret from the police for now. After some more filler and exterminating the entire gold ham population, We check the midnight channel and a silhouette appears. We can't make out who it is, but it seems like the killer will make their move soon enough. Not before long, and we receive another letter in the mail, threatening us to stop saving people or else we'll lose someone close to us. Dojima is taken aback by this threat and throws us into protective custody. We try to explain to him what's going on, but he won't budge, and leaves us to ourselves. But there is a TV in the room, and the midnight channel reveals someone else on there, Nanako. The gang bursts into the interrogation room, but it's too late. Nanako has been kidnapped. By rummaging through all the information they have, the group is able to deduce the culprit, the delivery truck driver, Taro Namatame. Dojima gives chase after Namatame, but Namatame ends up flipping his truck, causing an accident. Dojima is badly wounded, but Namatame seems to have escaped into the TV world, along with Nanako. Once again, we're the only ones who can save the day, and we've gotta hurry. The next morning, we trek on into heaven. The challenges in this dungeon aren't that much of a step up from the enemies in Naoto's dungeon. I can sort of just blaze through to the end without a care in the world. The mini-boss isn't one I have much to say about too. It's another cookie-cutter encounter. All the world balance does is mind charge and then use a heavy magic skill. The damage is high, but the danger is low, since I can always heal myself comfortably before it attacks. I retaliate with my own mind charge Zeodynes until the boss is defeated. In just a few minutes, all that's left to do now is to confront Namatame. But before we go in, I decide to equip the bead ring, which is another item you get from Nanako for placing high on the exams. It'll raise my evasion to magic attacks, which I thought would be the best thing I could equip right now. The team runs in and finds Nanako in Namatame's clutches. Yosuke and Kanji finally make themselves useful and get Namatame away from Nanako, but not without Namatame going berserk and being consumed by the shadows, turning into Kunino Sagiri. My setup between Shadow Naoto and this fight is practically unchanged, except with a heavier emphasis on physical skills. Despite the size of the enemy, Kunino Sagiri is a pretty squishy boss fight. The health pool may be large, but the damage you deal with power charged God's Hands is massive. One of their signature skills would be to temporarily control your party members and have them attack you. However, since it's just a one-on-one fight, there's no one to control, so we only have one unique skill to really worry about: Quad Converge. The skill will change the weather and make one element much stronger than the others, while reducing the others to being practically useless, and make one element much stronger than the others. Thankfully, I resist wind and electric skills, but if the boss increases the effectiveness of fire or ice, I'm forced to just keep healing until the weather returns to normal, and then I hope that when he changes the weather again, it'll be an element I resist. The weather changes don't have any effect on physical skills, however, so my God's Hands are still able to pile on a good amount of damage and keep the fight moving forward. When the weather does get changed to wind or electric, that's my chance to attack. The weather boosts my skills as well, so my Zeodynes are doing great damage even with my magic stat not being too high. For the last leg of the fight, Kunino Sagiri repeatedly uses Unerring Justice, a heavy Almighty skill which is honestly a pretty good scenario for me because it's not too strong. I do have to be careful with my health at times, but nonetheless, I can safely win this war of attrition. With one more God's Hand, Kunino Sagiri gets put out of his misery. Just like that, we've captured the killer and rescued Nanako. Being in the TV world for so long, aka one full day, has left her hospitalized though, so we'll have to hope she'll pull through. For us on the other hand, we have some loose ends to tie up before we move on with the story. The tail end of the Fox quest requires that I complete some fishing minigames. First I have to capture the River Guardian at the Samagawa floodplains, and then I have to capture the Sea Guardian. With that complete, I have now maxed out the Fox social link and gained full benefits from its SP healing in the TV world. With the Fox link maxed, I can now fuse Ongyo Ki for the Firm Stance skill card. Firm Stance is a skill that won't allow me to dodge attacks, but in exchange, I'll only take half the incoming damage. I'm not sure if I want to equip it onto Izanagi yet, so I'll hold onto it as a backup plan. I also fused Saturnus for the Growth 3 skill card. This will make grinding up the last couple personas I'll need for skill cards a lot easier, with a 75% experience gained from battles. But as the days go on, the town starts to get overridden with fog. Not just your average ordinary day fog. This is advanced leaking from the TV world fog. Once our exams are done, we try to focus on the positives and go out shopping for a gift for Nanako. But then, we get a call from Adachi. Nanako's condition is taking a turn for the worse, so the group rushes to the hospital. Just before Dojima can make it to her side, Nanako passes away. In a state of shock and anger, Dojima limps over to Namatame's room, but is brought back to his room by guarding officers. However, the team hears a strange sound coming from the room and decide to investigate. Namatame is found outside of his bed with the window open. Before the group can get much out of Namatame, his shadow appears on the TV. Shadow Namatame mocks Nanako's death and says he'll get away with his crimes scot-free, continuing to save people as he pleases. This dark revelation starts to influence the group to a horrifying crossroad. There's a large TV in the hospital room, and if the group so chooses, they could take matters into their own hands and throw Namatame into the TV, leaving him at the mercy of the shadows. The group is split, but Narukami is able to calm them all down and convince them to review the facts one more time. As a reward for thinking with a clear head, Nanako comes back to life. An early Christmas miracle for sure, but we still have more work to do. The real culprit is someone out there. Someone close, but who? The truth is right there, but God, if only I had a hint. Come on, think! Wait a minute! The letter! And he almost got away with it too. After confronting Adachi, he makes a crucial slip up and runs away. The group gives chase, but they're met with a dead end and a TV. It seems as though Adachi escaped into the TV world, and now it's up to us to bring him to justice in Magatsu Inaba. This dungeon has two sections. The first section is Magatsu Inaba, and the second and much bulkier one is Magatsu Mandala. You're tasked to reach the bottom of the dungeon in order to unlock the pathway to Adachi up above. It's not too long of a journey though, just a few floors and it's time for the mini-boss, the Chaos Fuzz. So this fight caught me off guard and pointed out a big issue with my current selection of skills. The Chaos Fuzz will summon 2 more fuzzes to make things a 1v3 in their favor. And that's when it hit me that I don't have any skills that target multiple enemies. And no matter what I do, I can't survive all 3 of them attacking me at once, so I get completely blown up. So it's time for me to update my Izanagi again. I've used Dekarabia for Megidola to replace Zeodyne as my magic skill of choice. I don't have enough money to get the personas needed to fuse Metatron for the Megidolon skill card, so I decided to grind again until I get the money I need, or until I get a Magician card during shuffle time and rank up my Megidola that way. There's a 1 in 3 chance I get Megidola upgraded, but unfortunately, all that happens is I turn my Diarahan into a Mediarahan, which is pretty bad in terms of SP management. Thankfully, I have another Diarahan skill card, so I can just put that skill on Izanagi again, but I think I'll just avoid Magician cards for now and focus on getting money. Once I have enough, I'm able to fuse Metatron and get the Megidolon skill card. At this time, I finally max out Izanagi's strength stat as well. Next up is fusing Trumpeter for the Debilitate skill card. However, I'm just barely 2 levels shy of getting Debilitate, so I gave Trumpeter growth 3, so I'll need to grind again before that happens. But before I get to grinding, I decide to give the Chaos Fuzz mini-boss another try and see how far Megidolon gets me. The answer is not that far. While I can now attack all of them, I'm still taking way too much damage to even have a chance to attack. They do have pretty low accuracy, so I try to see if I can just dodge my way to victory, but I just wasn't lucky enough. If I'm going to get past these guys, I'm gonna need to lower the damage I take. Remember that Firm Stance skill card I was holding on to? It's time to put it to use. I replaced Rakunda with it since I'll be getting Debilitate later on, so I won't have any use for Rakunda anytime soon. I try the fight again and things go much better. Now that I take half the damage I used to, I can actually have some breathing room to use Mind Charge and Megidolon to attack all the enemies at once. Firm Stance is an absolute lifesaver, and thanks to it, this fight became a very easy win. Afterwards, I made a beeline to the final floor in order to take on the mini-boss, but on my way there, I saw a gold hand, and after fighting it, it gave me just enough experience points to get Trumpeter to learn Debilitate. Anyways, on to the boss. The Envious Giant will do one of 2 things: inflict ailments, which it fails to do, or Megidolon, which doesn't do much damage. It also takes 4 times damage to physical skills, so a power charged God's Hand does about 1/3 of the boss's HP, so it doesn't take long to win the fight. With the path to Adachi clear, all that's left is to take him down. But I want to make some last minute preparations. Now that I have the Debilitate skill card, I'm not too sure what skill to get rid of since they're all pretty amazing. It came down to either Apt Pupil or Diarahan, and I decided to get rid of Apt Pupil. I thought about what my endgame skill set would look like, and considering that most bosses from here onwards resist physical, I think it's time to let Apt Pupil go. Next up is to head all the way back to the end of Nanako's dungeon to fight an optional boss, the Lost Okina. So this boss was tricky. Anytime I'd use Debilitate, they'd cancel it out with Dekunda, so I moved on to just attacking it with some Mind Charge Megidolons. Just when I get on the offensive, the boss starts afflicting me with ailments and debuffing my accuracy. That slows things down a lot as is, but once the boss gets to low health, it starts draining my SP. Did I mention the boss is immune to physical skills? So without SP, I can't do anything to win. Spirit Leech drains a whopping 100 SP from me too, and I don't have any items to fully refill my SP. I mostly just get the idea to just guard until the boss runs out of SP so that I can't use Spirit Leech anymore, and I can then refill my own SP and win from there. But even after 15 turns, the boss could still use Spirit Leech, so what gives? I don't have any SP to drain, and the boss shouldn't have any more SP either, so how can they still use Spirit Leech? It's not like it has a high SP pool to begin with. That's when I decided to do a little bit of research. It seems that Spirit Leech, like a couple of other enemy-only skills, doesn't cost any SP to use at all. There's no cost to using it. So I'm left with two choices. I could just use an SP item to give the boss enough SP so that it starts casting attacks, giving me enough time to raise my own SP for my own attacks, or I could just use any attack items I have lying around. I went with the latter plan, and thankfully, I did have enough Magatamas to win. I may be victorious now, but I really hope I don't have to fight an enemy like that ever again. Moving on, beating the boss allows me to pick up the Chakra Ring. This item will cut the cost of SP skills in half, so I'll be equipping that as my main dungeon accessory for the foreseeable future. I don't think I'll need the Patient Collar anymore thanks to Firm Stance, and with 2 of Izanagi's stats maxed out, I don't think I'll need the Paper Armband anymore. We make our way to the top of Magatsu Inaba and find Adachi. He starts to go on a tangent about how the world is to blame for everything, but his words don't faze us. As we refute his claims, he goes berserk and the two sides clash. Now this was a fight I've been looking forward to for a long time. Not because it's really all that fun mechanically speaking, but because it's an Izanagi mirror match. A battle between the Country Maker and the Calamity Bringer. Needless to say, I think my Izanagi has the upper hand. Adachi's primary method of attacking is with Vorpal Blade, Mudu, and Evil Smile. Vorpal Blade is his only move that's even mildly scary. Without debuffs, it does only 80 damage, but as long as it doesn't crit, I'll be fine. Mudun is useless since Izanagi naturally nulls Curse. Despite this, Adachi continues to use Mudun multiple times, so okay, thanks for the free turns, I guess? Evil Smile is also a non-issue, because even if it does inflict me with fear, I have more than enough homunculi to survive Adachi's Ghastly Wail insta-kill follow-ups. Adachi is also very resistant against physical, so my high strength stat means very little when I'm doing half the damage I'd normally do to a boss. Because of this, my best way to deal damage is to use Mind Charge and Megidolon. I also make sure to keep him debuffed for more damage. It's a long fight, but this is just the beginning. After Adachi is defeated, his body becomes possessed by some entity known as Amano Sagiri. It claims that the world desires ignorance and to live in a world where everyone is reduced to mere shadows. The investigation team didn't come all this way just to stop short, and we challenged the giant eyeball disco fog machine thing to one more fight. We're back to having bosses that have 2 turns, so that's fun. On one hand, Amano Sagiri doesn't do too much damage unless he gets lucky with Agniestra and lands 3 hits. On the other hand, I seem to have forgotten a crucial part about this boss's skill set. Amano Sagiri has access to God's Judgment, a light skill that will always cut my HP in half. Because I have Firm Stance, I can't dodge it either. But the boss seems to only use it on his second turn instead of the first turn, so as long as that keeps up, I'll be able to safely heal myself before it's too late. The problem with debuffing the boss is that, for some reason, they commonly use Dekunda immediately after. After all I said about the enemy AI in this game being silly, I'm starting to get annoyed with how the boss is picking the smart options. A bonus for me is that the boss doesn't resist physical, so a power charge to God's Hand does very good damage, and that's the plan for this fight. Halfway through it, however, the boss starts to pull out some tricks. He'll use Bewildering Fog to avoid any incoming attacks, and uses that opportunity to buff himself as much as he can, before taking the fog down and hitting me with a super powerful Nebula Oculus. It doesn't actually do too much damage thanks to Firm Stance on top of me guarding, But right after that is when disaster strikes. Amano Sagiri uses God's Judgment on his first turn and follows it up with an Agniestra that both crits and dizzies me, and finally uses one more Agniestra to take me out. Wow, am I just that unlucky? What is it with Shadow Teddy, Shadow Naoto, and now Eyeball Man just getting a lucky crit and just decimating me? If I want a safe chance to win here, I need to do something about God's Judgment. I decided to fuse your Lunger for Repel Light. It won't do any damage since all bosses know light and dark, but it'll at least protect me from God's Judgment. For now, I decided to get rid of Diarahan since I have enough items to heal myself anyways. I have to fight Adachi again before I get a rematch with Amano Sagiri, but the fight is just as easy as it was before, so let's just move on. Amano Sagiri is a lot easier to deal with now that he can't cut my HP in half at any time. I also decided to use some physical and magic mirrors to reflect some of his attacks back at him. He has a lot of HP, so I want to make things move faster when I can. Otherwise, it's just more power charge God's Hands from me while I keep the boss debuffed as often as I can. Thanks to the Chakra Ring, I'm not burning through too much SP, and I have plenty of healing items to sustain myself. The fight is more tedious than anything else because of how bulky he is. It doesn't help either that he can inflict silence, prolonging the fight even longer. In his last phase, things get a bit hectic. He gains access to the skill Quake, which has a high chance of downing me, and he starts using a lot more physical attacks too. Call it paranoia, but I feel like the boss knows that if it dizzies or crits me, that it'll win. I try to play it safe through the tail end of the fight, keeping my HP up as best I can. This leads to the end of the fight kind of dragging on, but I really don't want to have to fight this guy again. He even starts using Galgalum Eyes too. If he used that as his first move, then there would be legit nothing I could do to defend myself from his follow-up attack. Luckily, I'm able to deal a finishing blow before it's too late. With Amano Sagiri accepting defeat, he fades away as we finally capture Adachi. The fog clears up in Inaba, the sky is beautiful, and the team couldn't be happier. What an absolute group effort that was, huh guys? Jokes aside, the new year is upon us. A time for new beginnings, new experiences, and losing a week of time to some sickness. Marie appears to us in a dream saying farewell and thanks for the memories we shared. Now wanting to lose our friend, we enlist the help of Margaret to help us find Marie. While she's doing that, I'm gonna prepare for the trials ahead. I fuse Serve from Miragidine and grab a Firebreak skill card I stored in the Velvet Room. I also resummon Kukuri Hime for Diarahan again. I'm gonna need these to make the next dungeon a lot easier for me. In exchange, I'm gonna be getting rid of Power Charge and God's Hand. This may not make so much sense now, but trust me, physical moves have pretty much run their course here. After that, all that's left is to waste the next couple of weeks until it's time for the group ski trip to move the plot forward. While skiing with Yukiko, we get lost in a blizzard, but before we freeze to death, we're able to find shelter. After absolutely nothing happens, the rest of the investigation team bursts in and we're investigating a TV. Before we can leave, the TV begins to glow and a hand reaches out and pulls the entire team into it. I have no idea how Teddy fit inside, but turns out this was Margaret's doing, and she brought us to the Hollow Forest where Marie was hiding all along. We only have one day to save Marie, and if we fail, she'll leave our memories forever. With the stakes high, the group runs in, and I have no items. So the gimmick of this dungeon is that upon entering, you're given dungeon specific gear and lose all of your equipment, items, you name it. Not only that, but after every battle you enter, you lose half of your SP. Avoiding fights isn't much of an option here because opening pathways will often lead into an encounter. And even if I escape, it still cuts my SP in half, so my SP gets tanked pretty fast. I do manage to find an item that restores 12 SP per turn, which is handy to mitigate the SP loss when I do get into fights. But when I say that I had no idea how terrible this place was going to be, I really, from the bottom of my heart, mean that. 3 words, the Gorgeous King. I actually don't know how to properly express how annoying this fight was. With fights like Shadow Mitsuo, I was at least, engaged, even if I find the gimmick of the fight tedious and unfun. However, there's no engagement here. No interaction, no fun allowed. This is a solved game where I know the outcome, but that won't come to pass for a long time. So, the Gorgeous King summons 2 shadows to his side. They all don't do very much damage, but there's 2 problems. 1, the enemies love to inflict me with status ailments, especially exhaustion, which will make me lose SP when I already have none to work with. And 2, Spirit Drain. Any and all SP I could possibly get drained away in a moment's notice. Items aren't an option because I took all my items at the start of the dungeon too. The main boss also puts up Tetrakarn as well. So let's repeat that. I have no SP for magic, I have no items, and the boss set up Tetrakarn. And this is all ignoring the fact that the boss has way too much HP to boot, and if you take out the minions, they'll summon more in their place. Did I mention the Gorgeous King also has 2 turns? So it can inflict me with an ailment and then drain my SP. We should have just abandoned Marie. You want to hear the solution I came up with? First off, I need some SP. The damage I'm taking isn't much. These enemies don't do a lot of damage, but I need SP to both heal myself and to deal significant damage. The only way to get the king to stop consistently using Spirit Drain is to attack his Tetrakarn. Yep, I have to literally damage myself in order to get him to stop using Spirit Drain. This is all hoping that his goons don't inflict me with ailments as well, and hell, some of them have Spirit Drain too! Anyways, by attacking the Tetrakarn and putting it down, I can get the king to spend the turn he'd usually be using Spirit Drain on putting his Tetrakarn back up. This gives me enough SP to Mind Charge, but after repeating the process even longer, I can use a Megidolon. It does a lot of damage, but remember, the boss has a lot of HP. You see that 1k damage? That didn't look like 1k to me. At one point, I just decided to stop. I decided to just wait it out until the boss was out of SP, and it worked. That was the solution. That means I could freely set up my attacks and win the fight. Of course, right before he dies, he leaves me with one of his henchmen, but whatever. The fight is behind me now. Let's move on. And move on I did. Until the next mini-boss, the Heaven's Giant. It was nearly the exact same dilemma. Spirit Drain? Check. Status ailments? Check. A lot of HP? Check. 2 turns? You get the idea. Unlike the Gorgeous King, however, this boss is capable of actually doing damage to me. The goal here is that you're supposed to use breakers you find throughout the dungeon to break through the enemy's nullification of all magic besides Almighty. This prepares you for what you'll need to know for the dungeon boss at the end, and this is why I gave myself Fire Break a while back, so I don't need to rely on item pickups. However, managing my SP between healing and dealing damage is a bit of a hassle. Despite the troubles, I still got through the fight on the first try. But now, it's time for the main event. We finally confront Marie at the end of the dungeon. She starts to drop some twists, telling us that she was a spy for Amano, another fog monster, and that she doesn't deserve to be alive anymore. However, we're not leaving without her, so she tries to make us leave. This phase is just a warm-up. Marie will do nothing but Mind Charge the Megidolon. It deals laughably low damage, and we just retaliate with our own Megidolons. Once you hit her a few times, Marie will stop attacking and then put up her Shell of Denial. At this point, you can't hurt her anymore, and the fight will end soon after. Marie doesn't understand why we're trying to stop her. In enough time, the fog will go wild and turn her into a monster and lose all control. But we're not having any of that and decide to just beat up the monster when it shows up in order to save her. Marie agrees and allows the monster known as Kusumi no Okami to take control and battle us. This boss is unique in the sense that it reflects every single attack type in the game, except for Almighty. But Almighty attacks don't do very much damage anyways. What you're supposed to do is to use the breaker items you can pick up around the dungeon to nullify her protection to different types of magic, or if you have any break skills, you could just use those. This is why I brought along Maragidine and Fire Break. Combined with Debilitate, I'm able to do around 600 damage, but those chances don't come very often. Kusumi no Okami loves to negate debuffs with Cry of Denial, which can also inflict silence. Hot Lightning can also immediately dizzy me, allowing the boss to get free hits. Her attacks aren't dangerous at all, with none of them besides Hot Lightning doing any more than like 30 damage, but she can definitely make the fight go on for longer than it needs to. With Hot Lightning keeping me dizzied or Cry of Denial inflicting silence, I have very little chances to attack. But compared to what the mini bosses had me dealing with, this is nothing. My damage is still very high. It just takes a while for me to get things going, but when they do get going, it's some good progress. A long fight, but an overall easy one. One more Maragidine, and Kusumi no Okami is cooked. With the fog expelled from her body, Marie is now safe and sound. We escape from the crumbling dungeon and make it back to the real world. After a very lonely Valentine's Day, it's almost time to say goodbye. Just another day left with my best friends until it's time to head back home. Crazy to think it's almost been a full year. I'm really gonna miss spending time with these guys. Sure, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows, and I ended up doing a lot of the work, but now that it's over, I feel nostalgic. I ended up wandering to the place where it all began, and soon enough, I'm joined by all my friends. But someone brings up a good question. How did this all start? How did I gain a persona? How does the Midnight Channel exist? We even get a letter from Adachi asking us to get to the bottom of it all. There's still one more mystery to solve. Who's the one behind all of this? And I have a feeling they're closer than we think. Who did I meet back then? Was it you? No. You? Nah. You? I hope not. Wait, it was... After shaking hands with a gas station attendant and immediately regretting it, old stinky hands really thought they'd get away with it too. On our way to find the answer, we make a pit stop at the Velvet Room. Igor grants us with the Orb of Sight, something that'll help us when the time is right. We step outside, a downpour begins, and the truth is... the economy is so messed up that a god has to work as a gas station attendant. Her true identity is Izanami, and now she's pulling out all the stops to see our defeat. She awaits us in the Midnight Channel, in Yomotsu Hirasaka. Our final test is right before our eyes. The dungeon has some pretty tough regular enemies. They're mostly a challenge because while alone they're manageable, they're strength in numbers. But the mini-bosses are another story. I can comfortably handle them with my current skill set. Mind Charge Meraki Dime for the Minotaur, and Megidolon for the Sleeping Table. They're just the opening act to the main event. In no time at all, I've already made my way to the end of the dungeon. A few steps forward, and the final confrontation with Izanami will begin. Well, this attempt is just going to be a test drive rather than a legitimate attempt at victory. I want to see what to expect first in terms of challenge before I develop a sound strategy to win. We approach Izanami's lair and stand up against the true final boss. So, the first form of Izanami is pretty straightforward. She primarily just attacks with Mind Charge Megidolon, which does more damage than you'd expect with Firm Stance. I need to keep her debuffed at all times to take less damage, as well as deal solid amounts of damage myself with my own Mind Charge Megidolons. She also has God's Judgment as well, which cuts my HP in half, but the boss doesn't have too much health, so I'm not worried about getting cheesed before this phase is over. After about 13 minutes, Izanami becomes impervious to all attacks. With nothing left to do, we recall Igor's advice, and reach out to the Orb of Sight to reveal Izanami's true form. In her second phase, despite her being nothing but burnt bones, Izanami is far bulkier and her skill set is much scarier. Let's do some math here. With her debuffed, my Mind Charge Megidolons do about 400 damage. This phase has 8000 HP. It will take about 20 max power Megidolons to take her out. Now, her attacks separately don't do much damage even with her using her own Debilitate and having 2 turns to attack. She has access to Mind Charge and Power Charge, but without charging up her moves, she's not much of a threat. Her most common attack is usually a Kuro Ikazuchi into a Fury of Yasogami, and those combined barely hit for about 140 damage, which I can comfortably handle. Even when she debuffs me, I have more than enough Purifying Salts to counter her plans, and I'm already nearing halfway through her health bar. Am I really going to win when this attempt was just for data? Where's the challenge? Well, Izanami has what I like to call HP checkpoints. Whenever you deal over 2000 damage, she's scripted to use certain attacks and gain new ones. At 6000 HP, she'll do Kuro Ikazuchi followed by Masukunda. Well, that's not so bad. Where it gets bad is at 4000 HP, aka half health. She'll use Galgalum Eyes to inflict me with Enervation and summons Toyomi, which insta-kills anyone inflicted with an ailment. Okay, that attempt had to end somewhere, and I'm happy I know how far I can go. But now I need a plan. I will consistently get hit by Galgalum Eyes and summons Toyomi anytime she gets down to half health. But luckily, there is a plan I have to make it through this. It's the Book of the Void. It's an accessory that will protect me from almost every ailment. It's something I can find in the dungeon from a gold chest, and I have plenty of chest keys stocked up to go hunting. And in enough time, I'm able to find it. Now, it doesn't protect me from every ailment. I'm still susceptible to poison and exhaustion. But at the very least, Galgalum Eyes won't set me up to get nuked by summons Toyomi. There's still more preparations to make before round 2. First, I get Izanagi up to level 99. Next, it's time to take down the Reaper. We ignore Risei's warnings and open the treasure chest where the Reaper is contained. And wow, even with firm stance, the Reaper's magic damage output is very high. I have to keep him debuffed at all times to even have a chance of winning. But there's a catch. Because the Reaper moves twice per turn, Debilitate lasts half the time it normally does. That means more time spent debuffing and healing than attacking. With max HP and firm stance, the Reaper can commonly get me to half HP with Mind Charge Megidola, but that's the only way he can do a lot of damage. He doesn't do that very often, usually using unbuffed magic attacks to do under 100 damage instead. As long as I don't sleep at the wheel, I can keep myself alive while doing solid damage over time. And the fight goes on for so long that I think the Reaper's AI is starting to melt. We're reaching Shadow Naoto levels of stupid. Look at him try to Mind Charge when he's already buffed, and then use Mamudun, which doesn't work on Izanagi, and then he tries to Mind Charge again and again! Like, what happened? I think I'll just put him out of his misery. One more Arc Magatama, and the Reaper is reaped. With that victory, I get the Blade of Totsuka, Narukami's ultimate weapon. It doesn't really do much for me though, so I don't equip it, but it's a nice trophy at least. I also found the Sony Doriware, which is armor that grants me with plus 100 SP. Since I don't have the Chakra Ring anymore in favor of the Book of the Void, I'm gonna need all the SP I can get. With all of this, I challenge Izanami to one more rematch. The first phase goes by smoothly again, I'm not gonna waste your time on it. As for the second phase, I started to use physical mirrors to speed things up. Whenever Izanami uses Agniastra, she'll take the damage, and I lower the odds of her getting any lucky critical hits on me. I would use magical mirrors, but Izanami absorbs electric skills, and I'd rather not risk her AI being smart enough to heal itself off the reflection. Otherwise, it's just more Debilitate, Mind Charge, and Megidolon for me. Once I hit the 4000 HP checkpoint, I'm now safe against her insta-kill strategy. She won't use Galglim Eyes again either, so I don't have to worry about her using it and then just doing a regular attack for an easy kill. Now, I just need to survive through this last half of the fight and the challenge is over. She starts to get really desperate though. Almost every time I cancel out her Debilitate with a Purifying Salt, she debilitates me again. With no other option, I just debuff her back and decide to wait it out until I'm no longer debuffed, then hit her hard with Megidolon again. It's a pretty even match, all things considered, until we reach the final checkpoint. When she's down to 2000 HP, just 5 Megidolons away from defeat, Izanami decides enough is enough. She'll raise your chances of getting inflicted with ailments and use her last resort, World's End. World's End is a move that has a high chance of inflicting you with an ailment, and with Summon Tsuyomi existing, if I get inflicted with an ailment, it's game over. Now, the wiki says that World's End inflicts you with enervation, but that's not the whole truth. World's End can inflict you with seemingly any ailment, as evidenced here by me getting inflicted by poison in this attempt and exhaustion in another. You can guess what happened afterwards. I tried, and tried again. Maybe I'll get lucky this time, I thought. Maybe I can get past it this time, I hoped. But nope. The closer I fly to the sun, the harder I get sent crashing back down to Earth. Book of the Void protects me from every ailment in the game except those two. So what can I do now? I can't make skill cards at this point in the game either because I have no access to the Chagall Cafe, so is all hope lost? Is it really over? No. Much to my surprise, I actually have a Null Poison skill card saved in Marie's skill card bank. And I'll be replacing Fire Break with it since I have no use for Fire Break anymore. But not just that, I'll also be getting rid of Firm Stance. Without a way to null exhaustion at this point, the best I can do is try to dodge World's End with my high agility stat. And in the case that World's End does hit me, I pray that it aims for any other ailment besides exhaustion. I don't really have many useful skills to put on Izanagi, but I decided to just throw Invigorate 1 on to replace Firm Stance. This is it. One final struggle. Without Firm Stance, I'm taking a lot of damage. I need to spend more time healing, and as a result, the first phase takes a bit longer to get through, but either way, it's no sweat. Time for the main show. Now, Izanami's second phase also does a lot more damage, but honestly, whenever she's debuffed, I begin to dodge a lot of her attacks. This allows me to spend more time attacking than I'd expect to have. I have enough healing items as well to keep my SP up for both of these long fights. But once we reach the final stretch, I start to get scared. World's End does a lot of damage, and she does not let up on her attacks. It's dangerous even trying to find a safe point to attack. I have to keep her debilitated at all times just to feel comfortable enough to survive. It doesn't help that once she reaches the 1000 HP area, she seems to stick to a plan of stagnant air, mind charge, World's End, and summons Toyomi. With this plan of attack, I am constantly on high alert. Even if it seems predictable, if I'm caught off guard at the wrong time, it's over. And she loves to mix up her options sometimes after that 4-move cycle. But I'm not giving up. I've come too far, fallen short too many times, and have defeated so many annoying bosses. Those that cheesed me, those that stalled me, and those that stole my brain cells. And all of a sudden, I start to feel hopeful. The music starts getting louder, and I take a chance to attack.
Man, you really are strong.
I know you can do it. I trust your judgment.
Give him one from me!
Don't give in.
Fire!
Keep going, Senpai!
With that final attack, Izanami counters with 1000 curses, dragging me below. Surrounded by fog, I'm left drifting alone. But when you're at your lowest, sometimes you have to talk to the realest ones you know. With our resolve, Izanagi evolves into Izanagi no Okami, and now Izanami can't touch us anymore. It's time. We unleash myriad truths, defeating Izanami once and for all. Izanami accepts her defeat, and now that we have proven our strength, she'll stop meddling with humanity and leave the future to us as she fades away. It's finally over. All of our hard work has led to this. All that's left to do now is go back home and say goodbye to all of my friends in Inaba. As we say goodbye, the credits start to roll. Thank you all so much for watching this behemoth of a video. Sorry this was nearly 3 times the length of the Joker Arsene video. I just had a lot I wanted to talk about. This video was a solo run, but this video was not a one-man effort. Thank you to all these wonderful people for making this video possible. All appropriate links will be in the description. I think it's fair to say that this run was overall harder than the Joker Arsene run. I think the difference maker was that in Persona 5 you can directly raise your own HP and SP. If I could hit 999 HP, this would have been a lot simpler to complete. And then there's also the boss specific skills in this game like Galglim Eyes being far more absurd than those in Persona 5. Now, when will I do Persona 3 with only Makoto and Orpheus? I'm not sure. I'd have to do the run in Portable for skill cards, and I haven't played Portable before. I'm planning on casually going through it on my own first to familiarize myself with everything the game has to offer. It'll be my first time re-experiencing Persona 3 since I first beat it, so I'm looking forward to it. Now that I have a bulky external hard drive, I'm planning on regathering footage for all the Megami Tensei games I've played, so I don't have to delete footage to make space for new videos. It's been a contributing factor in videos taking so long to make, but in the coming months, it'll hopefully be a non-issue. If you want to keep up with what I'm up to, please subscribe to the channel. You can find out about what I'm up to through my Twitter as well. Once again, thanks for watching and take care.